Well, this gentleman's been on the Philly sports scene for a long time. He's as piped in as anybody, and he always brings it. And he's back with us here. His name is Howard Eskin, WIP. And Howard, start with this. Tiki and I were just kind of kicking this around before we actually get into the specific, the moves and just the Eagles. A broad overview of the division. I think there's a clear line of delineation between Dallas and Philly. I just think they're just better than the Giants and the Redskins. You agree with that, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Well, the Redskins are just irrelevant in the whole in the conversation. I mean, totally irrelevant. They have so many issues and so many problems, and they're just not good enough. The Giants may be a little bit better, but I don't think they're in that same class. I think it's going to come down to Dallas and the Eagles.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's about the core with the Giants, which leaves you some questions offensively and defensively. When you look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, how much of the pressure from the offseason, non-football related stuff, is going to seep into the regular season, Howard?
Well, as far as Chip Kelly's concerned, none. That's the one thing that doesn't bother him. Now, he obviously doesn't like to be called a racist.
Yeah.
But he just moves on. I mean, that all that stuff was just totally ridiculous. But the reality is he made a trade for a quarterback in Sam Bradford who he thinks gives him a better chance if he's healthy, and the doctors told him there's a good chance that can happen, than Nick Foles. And I like Nick Foles. But he doesn't care what people say, whether they like that trade. He doesn't care that he traded LaShawn McCoy for a linebacker who everybody has told me. Andy Reid told me he was the best guy coming out of Oregon his senior year. Kevin Cobb, who played with him, a former quarterback up there, said this guy is unbelievable. So they got a good player, and right now they have 3 running backs for what it would have cost them for one in LaShawn McCoy. And the other issue, which really is not discussed, Chip wants guys that are there for everybody and not just themselves. And I like LaShawn McCoy, but he got a little bit of me in him, and that didn't sit well with the Eagles. And I think McCoy could have a good year this year, but I don't think it's a long-term thing with McCoy as a running back. So with all the trades, regardless, the point I'm trying to make is regardless of what other people say, what the media says, what the idiots on Twitter say, what anybody says, he doesn't care. He does what he thinks will help this football team, and that's all he cares about. He doesn't get caught up in all the chatter.
Howard, here's the problem, though, Howard, for me, and I'm with you primarily. Everything you said, I agree, and the way you excused away or explained away, I'm with you on the racism. That's so unfair. It's so irresponsible. However, I do think Chip Kelly will care if he's 2-4, because what this is, or 1-3, what this creates is a narrative, and you reference the idiots on Twitter, troll mongers. It is what it is. I mean, some people actually believe that this guy is a racist, and if he doesn't win games right away, he's going to feel more heat. And I know it's Philly, so there's always heat, but the heat will be more palpable than if there was no offseason turmoil. Don't you agree with that?
Well, yeah, but that's Chip Kelly doesn't deal in hypotheticals, and that's a hypothetical. Hey, listen, if they went 1-3 or 2-4 or whatever it is, and they started off with a losing record, it doesn't matter what he did or he didn't do. And I think they're a better team, so it doesn't matter what he did or he didn't do. People, especially in Philadelphia, are going to crush him, and the national media, because the focus is Chip Kelly, because he's an interesting guy. He's different. He's a little, I think, strange in the way he approaches the outside world, and that's not a bad thing. He's a guy that just is football 100% of the time. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he's a really, really good coach. But you have to win, and you need a quarterback to win, and that's why they wanted Bradford. Again, I think they could have won with Nick Foles, but Chip Kelly wants to get to the Super Bowl like every coach does.
Yeah.
And he doesn't think that Nick Foles was quite that guy. And I think Nick's going to have a good career in St. Louis, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what goes on outside. If you start off with a losing record, people are going to crush you anyway, regardless of what you did or you didn't do, and they always look for something to point to. Who do you think is going to have a better record, the Eagles or Buffalo, where LaShawn McCoy went? Hey, he's mad because he went to Buffalo. What the hell do you do in Buffalo?
Yeah. Well, the last 20 years, the one thing you don't do is win, but we'll see what happens. They made some moves. I think the Bills will be good, or certainly better. I got to tell you, though, you talk about his personality, Chip, and it's a little quirky, almost a little detached from mainstream. He's got a little Jim Harbaugh in him, where it's just this you feel the same. I know Jim is maybe more of a man's man. I don't know if that actually fits the description, but I just feel like they're very quirky and they're almost kind of coming from the same place. You know?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I don't believe that's the case. I think Jim Harbaugh wore down his players with his yelling and screaming and craziness, and when something went wrong, he's throwing the headphones. Chip keeps an even keel, and he connects as much as a head coach can connect with the players. Hey, listen, I love Andy Reid. I think he's terrific. And I talked to a couple of players last night after the game. I was having dinner with a couple of guys, and they told me Chip, and they loved Andy Reid. They said Chip Kelly is just better. He really, really has everything going. He's got the respect of the players and all these different things that he does with the sports science and the travel's different, all that stuff. He explains everything to them. And if they want to talk to him, he'll take time. I mean, he'll talk to me. He'll do it on the run, but he'll talk to you and explain it. And that's what the players like. So Jim Harbaugh, I don't think really cared about explaining it to his players. He just wanted done what he wanted done. Chip will talk about it with players. Obviously, the head coach has the final decision. That's why I don't think he's Jim Harbaugh. Chip Kelly will not wear out these players where I think Jim Harbaugh did. Now, in college, it's a lot different because you turn over players every 3 years.
Yeah,
you can't do that in the pros.
Training camp 2 days underway. Tiki and Tierney show, CBS Sports Radio. Titans before. Right now we're doing the Eagles, an interesting team, but a talented one. Howard Eskin from WIP in Philly is with us here.
Yeah, Howard, on-field player-wise, the position that I think a lot of people are looking at is the quarterback, particularly the backup quarterback. We suspect Sam Bradford will be healthy and he'll be fine to lead this team. But what are they going to do behind him? It's Tebow now and Sanchez, who was okay. I've only completed a couple of passes. A lot of them were off target, but Matt Barkley looked really good. What's the plan?
And you made a good point. Matt Barkley looked good. This is what we're talking about in Philadelphia, the third-string quarterback. Bradford's a starter. Sanchez, I think, is the best backup quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. I don't really think he's a starter that can take you to a Super Bowl, but I think he really can do a good job as a backup and will. He didn't really have a great game yesterday. He was off target, but I've watched him in practice. And, again, it's only practice, but I see that he's just better. He's quicker, and Chip likes to run everything quickly. And his arm's a little bit stronger. Maybe he recovered a little bit better from the surgery 2-3 years ago. Whatever the case may be, Sanchez is your backup. So now it comes down to 3 and 4. Matt Barkley was the best quarterback for the Eagles on the field. Now, Bradford didn't play, but he was the best quarterback on the field. But what's amazing, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a Tim Tebow world. ESPN interviews Tim Tebow after the game. Are you kidding me? The guy really, he was sacked 3 times because he holds the ball too long. The one thing that Tim Tebow is he's a great, players love him. He's a great guy. He just the way he carries himself around the team and in the locker room, and he knows that the chances are a long shot.
Yeah.
But he scores a touchdown.
Now, listen, you get it. You've been around Howard Eskin, of course, WIP, the Tim Tebow phenomenon, and it's partly based in football and a million other things that make up a very interesting figure. But a good quarterback, not really.
Appreciate you, Howard.